Hey there everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm that Scottish nerd that brings you Pokemon trading card game content as well as gaming videos, so if any of that interests you, be sure to subscribe down below. In today's Theme Deck Tuesday, we're going to be having a look at this amazing fire deck in the Theme Deck format and how it stacks up, since we do have Welder in the deck. That's right, Welder is in the Theme Deck format, and in this deck we get 2 copies of it. If you're not aware, then this is a supporter card which allows you to attach 2 fire energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon, and then you also get to draw 3 cards from the top of your deck. Now 3 cards doesn't seem a lot, but that energy acceleration is immensely powerful, and the drawing cards is just a bonus really. Especially in the Theme Deck format, drawing 3 cards is fairly typical of most supporter cards, considering a lot of Theme Decks have cards like How or Hop, those kind of things that draw 3 cards flat out. So this is a very powerful supporter card, and we've got a good selection of Pokemon to use it with here. For our draw Pokemon, we have this Mewtwo with Caterday. You get to draw 2 cards, but unfortunately the Pokemon goes to sleep, so it's not the best for consistency, but it'll at least help you out in the early game. Also, we have this very good draw engine of Salazzle, and you get to discard fire energy from your hand to draw 3 cards. Very powerful draw, and with the amount of fire energy in the deck here, as you can see we have 15 fire energy, we're going to be able to draw a lot of cards even if we get 1 Salazzle set up. Our other supporting Pokemon is this Incineroar. We get a couple of copies of these, as it can be an attacker as well, but its strong cheer ability makes it so that your Pokemon's attacks, if it's in the active position anyway, their attacks do 30 more damage. So if you want to attack with it on its own, instead of doing 90 damage, it goes up to doing 120 damage. You do have to be discarding energy, but for a 2 energy attack cost, that's very efficient, especially with the use of Welder and manually attaching energy from our hand each turn. To combo nicely with that, we have Mewtwo, which I would argue is one of the main attackers in the deck, considering it does have 120 HP and is a basic Pokemon. Also, its Mind Report ability allows you to put a supporter card from your discard pile onto the top of your deck. So ultimately, we do get to use more than 2 Welders, since we do only have 2 Welders in the deck, but Mind Report allowing us to put a Welder onto the top means that we can use 4 Welders throughout the course of the game, and that's going to be great energy acceleration. And putting 2 fire energy onto this Mewtwo with Welder, in addition to the Psychic for the attack cost, means we can start hitting for that 70 damage, but of course getting the boost from Incineroar is going to be 100 damage. It's very efficient, and also going through any effects and just ignoring anything that my opponent could be using. Things like potentially stop us from attacking them, like coin flips, and they get the heads so we can't attack. Mewtwo's just going to be able to go through that stuff. We also do have a couple of other decent attackers in this Turtonator. If we power up, we're going to be able to get a big attack off, as you have to discard fire energy from your Pokemon and do 50 for each. Can be nice for taking out a big threat that your opponent puts up. In addition to this Darmanitan, which does 110 damage, but we have to discard all fire energy attached to it. And its Find Wildfire attack is great for thinning our deck and building up energy in their hand, as we are able to get 3 energy out of the deck. For our supporter lineup, we have a very supporter heavy theme deck. We only have 2 item cards in the deck, which is pretty unusual since we don't have any kind of ball search cards like Nest Ball, Ultra Ball, anything like that. We only have 2 Switch, which can be useful, with everything else being a very heavy supporter count. As I say, we've got 2 Cynthia, 2 Fishermen, which is great for the amount of discard that our Pokemon have for their attacks. We also have 4 copies of How to have a nice draw engine, as well as 2 Lily and 2 of this Looker, which draws from the bottom of the deck but also draws 3 cards. A little bit of an unusual card to see there, as well as our 2 Welder. So let's go and get into some games here, show off the deck's engine, how it works, and talk about how it fits into the theme deck meta. Getting into our first match here, we won the coin flip and we chose to go second so that we can use a supporter card, an attack, all that good stuff. Looks like my opponent just has an attachment, as you would usually expect anyway, since you can't really do a whole lot when you go first. We do also start with the Lily, which is going to be great since we're going to draw 4 cards here. Unfortunately, we don't get a whole lot to work with in terms of Pokemon, but we do have some good supporters for the following turns, and we can settle with using Caterday here to draw a card. We do luckily wake up as well, so we can use Torracat, or not Torracat, Litten, but we do have the Torracat in hand, so we could use Torracat if we want to start doing some damage on this following turn. The opponent's going to hit us for 20 damage, so I think I'll go into the Torracat here and also start attaching some additional energy to it perhaps. Could be useful, so I'll put the second energy just in case we get the Incineroar here. We don't have too much going on, so I'm also going to put down, I don't really want to put down Mewtwo and get Lily, so putting down the Welder into the discard pile, we can actually Welder onto this Salandit, draw our additional cards, and we do get some good stuff here. And then make use of Mewtwo, which is going to allow us to put Welder back onto the top of the deck to reuse that, and we can use Torracat's attack to do 20, but with the additional burn it's going to be a total of 40 damage. Unfortunately they do cure the burn, so they're not going to get any damage coming back into our turn, but at least we are that little bit closer to getting the knockout in the following turn here. My opponent is going to continue to hit us for 20 damage, and we do get that Welder of course that we put onto the top of the deck. We can attach this Psychic Energy to Mewtwo, and we'll just settle with the attack. Getting the first knockout here is going to be great since it puts us ahead in the prize race, and it looks like my opponent is also drawing pretty poorly as they're not got a whole lot going on at the moment. So we could go and use Cynthia on this following turn, try and get into some more Pokemon and energy cards. Definitely a good shout since it will protect our Welders, and we could really use with some energy. We do get one at least, so we can settle with using Welder and putting that energy on, drawing 3 cards. We do get into some good stuff here, so we can evolve up into Darmanitan pretty soon. And we'll go in and burn my opponent once again, getting that 40 damage in, and it's not cured, so they're going to take another 20 damage coming into my turn. That's going to knock them out unless they evolve. We see a Battle Reporter drawing cards, and my opponent does get the knockout on us, but they're going to take that burn damage, and that's going to be the game. That was a very short game for our first match, so let's get into another one. Looks like my opponent's got a mulligan in this match. They have chosen for us to go first, and we are up against the Malamar and Necrozma themed deck. This is a very strong theme deck with Malamar getting energy into play turn after turn, and we're definitely going to be competing for energy acceleration. We don't have a huge amount going on in this hand, but at least we have started off with a supporter card, which is going to allow us to draw 3 cards from the bottom of our deck. We do also get this mulligan, which is quite nice, although it is only a fisherman, so nothing too crazy there. We have a look here. We have a flame charge, which allows us to search our deck for an energy card and attach it to this Pokemon, also dealing 10 damage, which can be useful, but since we went first, we will be able to just attach a second energy on this coming turn and start attacking straight away. Looks like my opponent is also not got a huge amount going on, not being able to play a supporter card, although they will be able to get an attack off nice and early here. They have Call for Family, which gets them Pokemon out of their deck and into play. But interesting to see what they go for. They do get that Necrozma, which is a main attacker in their deck, very powerful attack that it has. Looker, we do get into some nice supporters here. Unfortunately, no more Pokemon, which is the main thing I would have been looking to get. Hopefully we can draw into a Darmanitan on this following turn with this How. Unfortunately, you do draw a lot of cards in threes with this theme deck. You have the How, which draws you 3 cards, you have Looker, which draws 3, and Welder, which also draws 3 cards. So really, if you're not able to get into the Pokemon that you need, you're going to be struggling with this deck. As one of the main issues of not having any item cards which are valuable. We do get into the Pokemon at least, which is Mewtwo, and we'll be able to set that up in the following turn here. If we can attach a Psychic this turn, we can Welder to it in the following turn at least. Also putting a support card onto the top of the deck, it's going to mean that we're guaranteed that draw of 3 cards in this coming turn, or in future turns anyway. My opponent are of course getting the knockout here, but they're also doing 10 damage to themselves, which is actually going to help us out in the long run. And as I mentioned, we're going to use this Welder to attach 2 energy onto our Mewtwo, and like that, it's ready to go. Thankfully we get into another Pokemon, which is that Meowth, but since there's not too much we can do from this point, we'll just settle with the attack, getting the knockout on our opponent. Taking the first prize card for our side anyway. We do have a nice board state set up compared to our opponent, since they don't have any energy in play. They are going to take a couple of energy to attack here, so we can just continue to attach energy to our board and to hopefully set up some nice stuff. Then we'll settle with a How to draw 3 more cards and get into some Pokemon. We get the Salandit, which can be useful. We'll attach an energy there and use Psyshock once again for 70 damage. Passing it over to my opponent, they draw a card and they're really looking for a Malamar here, so that they can start using that Psychic Recharge ability, putting energy from their discard pile onto one of their benched Pokemon. That's going to give them the energy acceleration that they need to start getting an attacker set up on their bench. Now if they do get an energy attached to the active, they could start attacking, but it looks like they've just given up on their active Pokemon, choosing to instead to attach to the bench. So we do have the Incineroar line here, we're just missing the Litten. Unfortunately with our hand size we're not able to draw a huge amount, so I think I will just opt to use Cynthia. We'll attach the energy so that it doesn't go into the deck, and we do want to be using Cynthia. This is going to allow us to hopefully get into some better Pokemon that we can make use of. Unfortunately we don't have a huge amount going on, but we'll put down the second Salandit anyway, in the hopes that we can get into Salazzle, and that will result in us being able to have the option to draw more cards. That's good that we get another basic here in Darumaka, as it will allow us to go into our Darmanitan. Using that Flare Blitz attack for 110 damage is going to be very efficient, since it's only requiring 2 energy to attack. So we'll put that down, as well as using Looker. Lowly would only be getting us 1 card, so it's not going to be huge value there, but we do get into the Salazzle, which we can evolve up and start drawing some additional cards. This is going to be our main draw engine, as I mentioned in the deck profile, and also having a reasonable attack that it can use. We'll do our attack here, and since my opponent is weak to Psychic, we're able to get the knockout, doubling up damage. So my opponent's really on the back foot here, since they are struggling with energy attachments, and in general they've not really seen too many supporters. They've been able to play 1 Cynthia, and that's really hindered the amount of cards that they're able to see in the deck. With our consistent draw engine of Salazzle, it'd be great if we can get into another Salazzle and start drawing 6 cards every single turn, plus our supporter. So speaking of that, I shall use Salazzle right here, draw our 3 cards, and we can make use of Hop, or How in this deck, and that can draw us 3 more cards. Getting into some energy is great. We're going to attach a fire to Darmanitan, and we'll use Psyshock again for 70 damage. Unfortunately not getting the knockout here, but we will be able to get the knockout on this following turn, and being ahead in the prize race is going to be great. My opponent finally does get the Malamar into play, so they can start using that Psychic Recharge to get energy onto the Necrozma. And hopefully we can get into some Litten soon. That Incineroar would be good to make use of, increasing our attack damage and also just being an efficient attacker in its own right. Now, it will be likely that my opponent gets the knockout since we are already damaged, but it looks like they're opting instead to go for a Call for Family to search out Pokemon, get their board set up a little bit more, which is certainly an understandable move to be making. We can attach a Psychic Energy to this Salandit, since Salazzle does have a colourless and fire attack cost, as well as using our Salazzle to draw some more cards. We get 2 fire energy and a Welder, which is going to be comboing nicely to attach energy, as well as getting our second Salazzle down. I think I will go with this Welder, just attaching the 1 energy here, since we don't actually need to attach any more than that. We get into our Litten, as well as having additional energy to use Salazzle. Going to draw 3 more cards. As you can see, my hand's really getting pretty big now, and we do have a lot of options at least. There's that second Litten, so if our Mewtwo gets knocked out, we can set up a second Incineroar, or we do have this Turtonator now, so we could start attaching to that if we want to take a big knockout. Having a look at this Necrozma, it does have 130 HP, so unfortunately even Incineroar wouldn't be able to knock it out. So I think we will have to opt for the Turtonator. That way that we can get the knockout much more easily. Just having to discard 2 energy if we have Incineroar in play, that would result in the 130 damage needed for the knockout on Necrozma. And in this upcoming turn, it looks like we'll have to resort to using our Salazzle to attack with. Since our Darmanitan's only doing 110 damage, it's not going to be quite enough that we need to get the knockout, and we're not able to get Incineroar into play just yet. The other option is using Meowth to do 30 and then Darmanitan, but since we don't have Welder in our hand anymore, we're going to have to resort for going in with Salazzle, and we can start to set up our Turtonator as I mentioned. As well as getting Incineroar into play is going to be crucial. We don't have a huge amount of draw going on here. We do have How and Fisherman, which we could use Fisherman, but I'm going to want to use How first of all. We get into another Mewtwo, which is great, as well as an energy. Don't really want to draw any more cards though, since our deck is very thin at this point. So we'll just settle for our 60 damage. Of course, when your hand does get this big and your deck's getting pretty thin, you do have your Cynthia, so you're going to want to keep those around for when you're getting close to being decked out. That's going to allow you to shuffle all of your cards back into your deck and just draw 3. So unfortunately we do have to slow down a little bit, since we're not able to get a one-hit knockout on this Necrozma. And if we have a look at our Welders, we have used both of our Welders. So if my opponent gets the knockout, which they will this following turn, we could make use of Mewtwo to put Welder onto the top of the deck. That would allow us to get the knockout with Turtonator. Or we could just go in here with Darmanitan and get the knockout. kind of like that best, although Darmanitan could be a useful attacker. I think getting the knockout with Darmanitan is going to be optimal here, keeping the Turtonator around so that if we need to take out a big threat we can certainly do that. We can get our Incineroar into play. I'm going to keep this bench space open in case I want to put down a Mewtwo or anything else really. We'll just go with our attack with Darmanitan, doing the 140 damage now since we have Incineroar, and going down to our final prize card. My opponent will have to pull out all of the stops, and I mean there's no way that they can really stop us at this point since we do have the Turtonator set up on the bench. They would have to playing a Lysander or a Guzma in order to pull it up from the bench, or even a Pokemon Catcher if they get heads, but if they're not able to do any of those, if they're not playing it in the deck, since you know obviously they can't choose what's in the theme deck, we will be able to win this game nice and easily with our Turtonator. This has been a great show of the deck's strength. Well, you don't have a lot of item support in the way of search cards like Nest Ball, Ultra Ball as I mentioned in the deck profile. You do have a lot of draw once you get into your Pokemon like Salazzle, and being able to use Cynthia or Welder especially to accelerate energy, you're going to be able to effectively draw through your deck very quickly once you get set up. So like I say, we do have the knockout here. We can use Switch to go into our Turtonator and discard all of the energy attached to Turtonator for a total of 180 damage to get the knockout here and win this game very comfortably. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like down below and leave a comment with your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next video.